Hey, Ben here with Visual Dev FM. Today I want to show you how you can use GitHub and VS Code with Webflow. How that works, how you can manage code, write code here in VS Code instead of having to write in Webflow, and then work with it in a Webflow project. So here's kind of what we're working with. I built a Webflow project already. This is my style page where I've got things kind of set up. You can see I've got this texture card is the X of X, and I've got a sample card image and a get new card button. And so what we want to do is we're going to use an API to randomly get us a card and to return and tell us what it is, the value and the suit, and then the image. So I found this cool API. This shuffles the cards. You can see this draws the cards. This is what we're going to look at. And you can see replace deck ID with new to create a shuffled deck and draw cards from that deck in the same request. So if we copy this and just paste it here in a new tab and just type in new here, you'll see that it tells us success true, cards, it's the 4 of diamonds, and then it gives us an image even to use, 4 diamonds, perfect. So we're in good shape. So this is what we want to use, right? And so if we want to take this and use it with the project, we're probably going to need to write some custom code. And then what's a good way to do that? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump over to VS Code, and I'm going to actually open up my Finder window, and I'm going to go to my documents. So I'll pull this over here. You can see I have a GitHub folder in here. I'm just going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this, pick a card. Okay, and so now I have it here. I'm going to open it up. Actually, going to go back here. So now over here in VS Code, I'm going to add a folder. And I'm going to go to my documents, and I'm going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to choose pick a card. You see that's empty. And if I open a terminal, so I can say new terminal in VS Code, one of the cool things that it will do is it will say documents. It will navigate you right here to where you should be. But if you want to, you could say CD, type in CD, and you can drag over the folder that you want to navigate to, just right in here, and then hit enter, and it's going to get you to the directory you want to go to if it doesn't start you in the right directory, right? So now I'm in the directory. I've got a folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into GitHub. Okay. So a lot of people use GitHub. A lot of people think of GitHub as being scary. It doesn't have to be scary. It can actually be a lot of fun and really fun to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to click up here, and we're going to create a new repository. I'm just going to call this pick a card. And then my repo for the pick a card project. You can give it whatever kind of description that you want. To use this, we need to make it public. And then what we want to do is create the repository. So I'm just going to click create, and we're rolling. So I want to create a new repository in the command line. So I'm just going to copy this right here, and by clicking that button, and then I'm going to roll back over to VS Code, and then here I'm going to make sure I'm in my pick a card folder, and I'm just going to paste this and hit enter. It initializes my folder for GitHub, and I'm good to go. So if you've not used command line a bunch, if you command K, you can clear all that's there. So now I'm set and I'm ready to go. And when I use this, you can say create a new repository on the command line, and then you can create a README. So it did create a README file. And a README file in GitHub is just something that's going to show on the home page where you can explain your project if you want to, and give it some details. So this is just a markdown file, and we can explain this later. So, but now that we're here, what I want to do is I want to go over to settings. Once I'm in settings, I'm going to scroll down to GitHub pages. So in GitHub pages, what I want to do is select the none and just choose master. Okay, well, that's one problem. I don't like that term. And so I do want to rename my master branch to something else. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy and paste this. You don't have to do this, but I just think it's the right thing to do. I'm going to copy and paste, and I'll put this in the video description. I can run this, and now you can see my master branch is main. Or I'm now in the main branch, and then what I can do when I'm over here, branches. So to explain this, you can have many different branches. So you see I now have master and main. And this is something that you would use if you're working with a bunch of people in code. So if you had 5 or 6 people committing code to GitHub, you would have this base code that you wrote that kind of makes your app go or your website go. And then what would happen is someone would create a new branch, which would, create basically a copy of the repo in that moment in time, and then they would work on it there in that branch, add any changes, and then they can merge that back in. So take the changes they've made and merge that back in, so it doesn't mess with anything that's happening. Typically, GitHub starts with a master branch. We're just going to get rid of that. So here I can go to branches, and the default branch I can make main and update that. Yeah, I understand that's going to make the default branch change. And then, I can just absolutely remove this branch. So if I could switch back and forth here, but later I'll remove this branch. So in fact, let's just view all branches here, and on master, let's just delete. Master was deleted. So now it's just a language thing that I think is important. But wanted to spend time on it and show you, if it's important to you, how you can change that. So link in this show notes to the code I used to do that, and also to a page that teaches you how to do this. So now I'm on main. This is good. Okay, so let's go back to our settings. We have a public repository. And now we're going to go to GitHub Pages, and we're going to choose our source as main. And we're just going to, choose it and save. All right. So if I scroll back down here now, you'll notice I have a web address for this repository. It's really cool. So you can see there's nothing here now because I've committed nothing to my repository. But we're going to get there. So let's jump back over to code. You can see I've just got the README, and if I go to my local machine where I've got this folder, pick a card, I've just got the README and some Git files that initialize this, so I'm good to go. So what I need to do is start a new file. So I'm going to click New File, and I'm going to call this, pick.js, I guess. That's what I'm going to use. So this is how I'm going to work, or where I'm going to work. And then I need to write some code. I sort of got started here, so I'm going to go ahead and pipe this in, where essentially I have this, this data, this function that I've already been working on. But what I want to do is write my function right here. So let's take a look at the API. I don't mean this to be a JavaScript course by any means of the imagination, but we do want to take a peek and see what's happening here. So you can see it gives me cards and then all these values. So I just need to write some quick JavaScript that's going to help me get these values and return them on my Webflow page. So let's get started. First things first, here I'm getting, you can see I've already using a jQuery Git, and I'll have a link to this GitHub repository so you can get this code if you want to use it. But this is the address I was using back over here. This, in fact, except right here I'm drawing 2 cards. I just want to draw 1. This gives me 1 card here. And so I'm making this call to get that data. Now I need to write some code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, give me a constant, and we'll call it suit, so we can get the suit. And we'll say that equals data dot cards, and since it's an array, we'll have to do open bracket, put a 0 in there, and then do suit to get the suit, and then we'll save it. Okay, and then just to see if this works, what we want to do is we'll just quickly console log, and we'll say suit, and we'll save it. So now basically what we're doing is we're using jQuery to get this API endpoint. We're setting a variable from that endpoint with the suit, and then we're going to console log it. So now here comes the fun part we get to start learning. Now if I'm going to go down here in my console, and if you're not using the VS Code terminal, that's fine, but we're going to say git and add, and then just do a period. What this is going to do is it's going to stage all your changes, everything that you've changed. If you're working with just one file, you could literally say git add pick, .js if you wanted, but we'll say git add period, and it adds it and stages that change. And then we'll say git commit, and we'll do -m, and then we're going to open quotes and put a message, and we'll say added our file and logging the suit to check if this works. So just kind of being descriptive in case anybody else wanted to see what was happening. This is typically meant when you're working with other people so they know what changes you're making, or to remind yourself later, what was I doing? So I do that, and then I'm going to say git push, and it's going to push this up to GitHub. So now, if I switch over to my browser, and I go to GitHub, you can see I can refresh the page here, and now I have pick.js here. Added our file and logging suit to check if this works. And I can click into the file. Hey, here's the code we wrote. Really cool. And you can see if I click here, I can get the specific commit, and it'll actually show me the difference. If you're adding and subtracting, it will show you, what's happening. You can even come in here and add notes if you want. But this is that specific commit. So I'm going to jump back to my code. And remember, we had this site that was created. We didn't have any files. But now if we add pick.js here, you'll see that, oh, hey, now we're getting somewhere. We have this code that's being served up by GitHub. So if we copy this and come back over to our project, our GitHub project, I'm just going to go to the home page. And then down here at the bottom, instead of writing my code like normal, what I would do is I can just do like a script, and the source equals this right here, and then close this. And now we can save it. We save our project and we publish it. So let's come back here and refresh. And then let's open our console. And we see one message. Hey, it is logging. We got no errors. That's good. It is console logging the suit. So let's go back to our code. And you can see, yep, it got the suit out of there. And it logged it. So now we have spades. So let's keep going. Let's write some more code. It's going to be really similar. We'll say create a new constant, and let's call this one value, and we'll give it equal data.cards, and we'll once again select from the array, and we'll say, I think in this it's called value. This is where I'm getting, if you're wondering where this is coming from, here. So you can see we're going for the data, jumping into the cards, and we're saying give me the suit. This is the value, so we'll just say the value here. And then down here again, I like to always just, when I'm starting, just to know that I'm doing things right, let's console log it just to make sure that this is working. So let's console log the value now. And then we save it. I'm going to save it here. And then we just go through the same process. Let's git add period. Let's git commit added in the value, and then let's git push. And so now it pushes this up to GitHub. And so if I roll over here back to GitHub and I refresh, you'll see I have a new commit added in the value. And if I click here, you'll see that now, okay, I console logged something twice, so that's terrible. I didn't even realize I did that. Okay, but you can see that there. And if I go back, let's just jump right back. If I go back to my code, hold on, and I click on added in the value, you can see this, it shows me what was added. I added this value, I added suit again for some reason, then I added value. So you can see it shows me the difference in what I wrote. And if I come back to my code here and I refresh it, I have that change, right? So if I were to refresh this page, hearts, 10 hearts. So I'm console logging that twice, but I'm getting the value, I'm getting, all those pieces. So let's try to finish up our code here. So console logging the suit, console logging the value. Let's create one more constant, and we'll call this image, and it will equal the data.cards, and then once again the array, and we'll say we could just do image if we wanted, or you could do images. And let's look at the structure and see why. So in here, there's just an image which we can pull, or if you put images, you could choose whether you want the SVG or the PNG. For now, I'm not going to be picky. I'm just going to choose image, and then down here I'm going to choose this, and let's just console log the image, and make sure we have everything. So once again, I'm going to get add, this is something you'll get used to, get commit added in, if I could spell, in the image. Perfect. And then let's get push, and it pushes it up. Then once again, just to beat a dead, not to beat a dead horse, but let's jump back over. Let's go to GitHub, and you can see now added in the image. If I refresh, you can see it's here. And if I refresh this code, hey, it's not there yet. What's going on? You can see here in GitHub, it takes a second for everything to push out to your site that you're using. So there is a little delay when you're working here. But I can come in here and see that, okay, now I'm grabbing the image, I'm console logging that image, and if I jump back, not to my profile, but back here, you can see the difference where I added in the image. And if you see here, this little orange indicator, this means it's processing here, working on getting this change out, pushed out. But you can see, let's go look in here in the difference here. I removed suit, I added image, I added in a constant for the cards image. So we're getting there. And then back over here you see green check mark, and if I refresh, now I've got my image here. So if I refresh here, I'm console logging the suit, the value, and the image. So let's jump back into Webflow. On my page, so I'm on the home page, I have a couple things. I have your card is the X of X. And so if you choose this, I've got an ID of value, and on this one I've got an ID of suit. And then inside here, I've got an image with the class of card, and an ID of image. So what I want to do is just pass these values, just write them back to the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump in here and I'm going to say document, and then use the old faithful get element by ID, and then let's open this up and we'll say let's get the suit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do .enter HTML, and we're going to say it equals suit. Okay, and then to make this easier, we'll just copy this, paste it. Let's get the element by ID. Let's get value, and then that's going to actually be value. And then one more time, we're going to get an element ID, we're going to get element by ID, we're going to get image, but instead of enter HTML, it's going to be source, and that's going to equal image. So let's save this, and let's get add, period, get commit, and then add in a message, wrote elements to the page. And let's get push. So it's going to push it all up to GitHub, and when we flip back over to our repo, we can refresh it. And wrote elements to the page. It's really good. And if we jump in here, we actually see now all of our code. We've got our constant that's suit, constant that's value, constant that's image. And we're console logging those still. And then we're getting these elements by ID and writing them to the page. So let's jump back over. And let's take a peek at the difference. Here you can kind of see I just added 3 new lines. Nothing really huge. You can see that some of the code is missing. If there were no changes there, it may not show you all of it. So you can click up and see there. If we jump back to the repository too, something really cool, as you see our changes are live. You can see that it actually here will show you the languages involved. So how much JavaScript, how much HTML, how much CSS. So in your environment of GitHub pages. So now if we come back over here and we refresh this, you can see now we've got all of this written. And if we refresh this here, your card is the Ace of Hearts. It's great. So this is actually working just the way we want it. If I refresh the page, Ace of Diamonds, Ace of Clubs, 7 of Spades, Ace of Hearts, 7 of Hearts. As you refresh, it just gets you a new card. It's just like hitting that endpoint every time. So what we can do here is, what I want to do is I just want to make this where this element refreshes the page so people don't have to hit refresh. So down here, instead of using a button, I'm using an HTML embed. And I've got a function here, new card. So all I'm going to do is jump back into VS Code, and I'm going to create a new function. So I'm going to call it function, and then I'm going to call this new card. And then here I'm going to open and close, and then all I'm going to do, this is real easy, I'm going to say location dot vload, and then just like that, and then save it. Very prettier formats that for me. You can see even VS Code is telling me what's new. And then the other thing I want to do before I finally commit this is I want to quit console logging values. That's something we don't want people to see, in the final version of the site. So let's remove those console logs and let's save. And then we'll get add that period. We'll get commit, added reload function, and then we remove the console log. And then we'll get push. And then once again, it's going to jump right up, take care of us. If we jump back over to GitHub and refresh, added reload function and removed console logs. Awesome. So if we jump in here, you can see this is kind of our final code, what it's looking like. We can jump back here and get into the commit. So let's jump into the commit itself. Let's go in here. You can see removed these 3 lines, added these new lines. Okay, cool. And I wanted to show you this commit stuff, because here you can see there's a specific commit, and this is going to come into play later when we're serving this up. So now that we're working this, this works great, right? Like I can refresh, get a new card. If I click, let's do a hard refresh, get a new card. Oh, see that works now. Perfect. I can click that, it refreshes the page. So this is all working. The problem is this file that's being served up right here, this is not anything that's really super, like it's not on a CDN. So like if we're using production, maybe not the best thing. So what we want to do is look at jsDelivr. And with GitHub, it is cdn.jsdelivr.net/gh. So GitHub/user/repo@version file. So we can do it that way. You don't have to use this @version. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and let's copy and paste it. We're not going to save this, but just so you can see, let's paste this here. So that's what we have right now. This is telling us to use this. So let's paste this here, just so we can see the difference, right? And so GitHub user would be your username. So for me, it's Ronnie Victor. Repo and @version. Right now, I'm just going to do pick a card. And then the file would be pick.js. So now I can copy this address, and if I open it up over here, oh, it failed to fetch Riley Richter pick a card at latest from GitHub. Ooh, interesting. So what's happening here? Okay, so real quick, easy way to do this is if we jump in here, pick a card, and then what we want to do is go back into GitHub. And if we click on this, we're going to get this version. So we can say at this commit. So we'll just copy this commit ID here, and then if we jump over here and we say pick a card, and we include the @ symbol, and we include that specific commit, it's going to get this specific version of the file. So now if we do this, oh, I loaded the wrong one. Pick a card at this here. So now if we hit this endpoint, we should see our specific version. You see this is fed over as CDN now. And now that we have all of our functionality done, we're going to serve up this CDN version of the file. So we'll go back into Webflow, and instead of using this GitHub source, we'll just swap it with this jsDelivr. It should help this load quicker and take advantage of that jsDelivr CDN. It won't change any of the functionality, so we can see it's still calling, making that call. Reload works just fine, and if I view the page source, you can see I'm using that jsDelivr file. Now, how do you go about doing this? And as far as like updates, well, if I make an update, because I make an update and push, I'm calling that specific commit. So that means whenever I do push code, like if once I get to production and I'm done with the meat of the work, if I do make changes, I'm going to have to jump back into GitHub, get the latest commit, and just paste that into Webflow, which is fine. It's just replacing this string right here. And typically what I do is instead of placing this here, I'll save this, remove it, save it, go to my project settings, and then in my custom code, I just add it to every page. Especially if I'm using it in a lot of places in the site. Maybe for if you're only using it one or two places, it's not as big a deal. But this still works. But it's now being served here in this one place, and I can just come back and change this specific commit if I make any changes, and it's going to pull that version. Now there are, like with jsDelivr, there are ways to bust the cache and get the latest version and do all kinds of different things. And you can read up on all of that. I don't want to get into that here because it feels like it's a little in the weeds. But this allows you to write code in VS Code. In fact, I'm going to remove these. And then commit this to GitHub and then serve it with Webflow. So, no republishing Webflow a million times. You can just, you will have to add, git, commit, git push. But I really feel like this is so much easier. And then you can do all kinds of things. So you can create new files, and you could, say style.css. And you could actually include the CSS file here in your repo, and then you can call it. I do this quite often. If I have custom code, I have JavaScript and I have CSS, and then this way I can just include these here. And typically when I work, I have a couple of different things. One, I will have, actually for each project, I might have two repos. So I'll have one repo that looks a little bit, like this, and has my public files, and in my README I would explain what this is for, link to the site, these files are for this, XYZ. I make sure my client knows about it or whoever I'm working with. But then I also might have a private version of the repo where I've got stuff I use during development that they may want to bring back and use. I've got stuff like I document my zaps in here, or my Integromat scenarios. I say, I use Markdown and a language called Gherkin, which you can look up. But you can say, if in fact, I think you can just do this with like Gherkin like this. You can say, when, given a scenario, when, and there's a whole official way to do this, when a user submits a form, and this isn't super proper right now, but you can clean it all up and look it up. Then, Zapier fires and X step, and then, then the next step. And I try to document these so, clients will have access to Zapier, but this also gives them written documentation of what all the Zaps do. That way, if we come back in 6 months and they're like, hey, we need to do this, you can go, what was I thinking? Like when I did this? It's a great way for even yourself just to be able to kind of see what you were up to. So anyhow, this is kind of my method of working in GitHub and jsDelivr. If for some reason you need more instant feedback, a good way to work is to Code Sandbox. I don't know if anybody uses this, but Code Sandbox, if I can type, .io, and you can pull up a dashboard and create a sandbox and just create static HTML. And here you can write HTML and JavaScript and get more instant feedback. Sometimes I do this if I'm just trying to, if I'm really in the weeds and really lost or trying something super experimental. But if it's something pretty standard like what we did today, where, I'm going to get this, make a call, and set some constants and write it to a page. It's pretty standard, and so I don't have to go real far out of the way to work on that. So I'll work mainly here. But anyway, I hope this video helps people who are looking to add some code on top of their no-code experience. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to hit me up.